Hello everyone, this is going to be a very different video, and I gotta state at the very beginning, any clips that I use in this video are not owned by me. They are owned by Pan's Labyrinth and Little Misfortune. These clips are not owned by me. Don't hurt me, YouTube. I'm just trying to have some fun. Now, I've said a little bit about what I'm going to talk about, so get ready. This is going to be a very different video. The other day, I was watching a movie called Pan's Labyrinth. And I remember seeing this movie when I was a kid, and one of the characters, the Pale Man, which was a character in that movie, scared the ever-living shit out of me. I hated that character so much. They did a fantastic job on creature design and all sorts of various different things. I love that. I love that design. So I was like, I need to sit down and I need to watch this movie again. I need to watch this movie again and experience in full, because if you guys have not seen it, the movie is in Spanish. It's set in Spain in 1944, so the entire movie is in Spanish. And I might look like a Spaniard, but I don't speak Spanish at all, or at least not like that. But irregardless, I'm not one to quit just because I don't understand the language the movie is written in. And so most of the time, I have found that a movie in a different language is very good, and I was not disappointed. This movie was fantastic. I loved it. Now, before I go any further, I do need to say this video does include spoilers for Pan's Labyrinth. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, which if you haven't seen the movie now, even you like movies, but you have to read them, go watch it before you listen to what I'm about to say, because I'm going to talk about some spoilers. But as I was watching that movie, especially towards the end, I noticed some similarities between my favorite game, Little Misfortune. And it was crazy. I was sitting there watching it, and the movie was going with it, all right, I get it. We understand this. Okay, I understand what Ophelia, the little girl in the movie, is going through. And then towards the end, Little Misfortune just came to my mind. And I saw Little Misfortune and Ophelia becoming the same character, going through the same experiences, though the stories were completely different. These movies were a lot alike. And I don't want to discredit Little Misfortune, because I don't think Little Misfortune copied this movie at all. I just think they have similar ideas that somehow portrayed really close to each other, not by characters or plots or places, but the idea that I think they're trying to portray is very close. And I'm going to go through and talk about it a little bit. So because I have played Little Misfortune, I'm not going to talk about that one too much. I'll just make comparisons to that, but I'm going to talk about Pan's Labyrinth. So for those of you who have not seen Pan's Labyrinth, the whole movie is set in 1944 about the Spain Revolution. There's a camp up in the woods, and the new regime, the new order in Spain, is now hunting down the last revolutionaries. And right away we're introduced to our character Ophelia and her mom. And what they're doing is they're going to live in this camp, and they're staying with the commander because the commander is Ophelia's stepdaughter. And so a lot of stuff happens there, but you soon realize that the commander is using the mom to have a child, to carry on the family name. That the commander doesn't care about Ophelia or her mom, he simply cares about his heir. So you quickly learn the harsh world that Ophelia is growing up into, just like Misfortune, where at the beginning of Little Misfortune, you see Little Misfortune has a rock with blood on it that her dad threw at her face, and that is one of her best friends. Both characters share terrible worlds. They are in very bad situations, and that's our first point where they share common themes. You quickly find out that Ophelia loves to read fairy tale books, and she talks about this story about a princess that escaped from the underworld who died and would return back to the underworld and reclaim her spot. So as they stop on this road, because Ophelia's mom needs to take a break because she's so late in her pregnancy that the car ride is making her sick, Ophelia walks and finds a statue where she finds a fairy just like out of a fairy tale book. And here is where Ophelia's story begins, because just like out of the storybook, she's meeting the fairy who was the first person you meet inside of the book she's reading. This is where Little Misfortune and Pan's Labyrinth kind of separate. Little Misfortune's journey starts a little bit weird. She hears a voice in her head in her room, and you can interpret that as death. Death is calling her, and in a way, you don't know. You're not too sure if death is real or if the voice in her head is real, because at the time you don't know it's death. But she goes out into the road and she's about to begin this fantastic journey, and maybe the voice in her head at the time was good, or maybe it was bad. Nevertheless, she gets hit by a car, and so the rest, and she dies there on the street. But the rest of the game is just a mind game in her head. She's stuck inside of her head, playing over this situation, going through the world, not realizing that she's died, and the voice inside of her head is actually a demon talking to her, and she's stuck in like a limbo in a way. However, in Pan's Labyrinth, what seems to be happening is you can't tell whether or not this fairy tale that she is going, like that she's seeing fairies. You can't tell if the fairies are real, because in a way, other people around you might not be able to see them because the fairies don't want you to see them. Or maybe it's just Ophelia's way of dealing with the situation, that in a harsh, cruel world, her childlike imagination takes over and she sees things that aren't real to help her cope with the situation. And it's really hard to distinguish between the two in both Little Misfortune and in Pan's Labyrinth. You don't know what is reality. But at the end, that's not what really matters, if stuff is real or not. That's not the point the movies are trying to make. Connection number 2. Both Pan's Labyrinth and Little Misfortune have very, very interesting supporting characters. In Little Misfortune, we are introduced to Benjamin. And Benjamin turns out to be our savior, our hero in the story. He is there to save us from the demon and eventually takes us over into the underworld. And it's weird because the underworld is also a place in Little Misfortune, but he is more or less the Grim Reaper. In a sense, he is there to save us from the demon and take us to a better place. But throughout the game, you don't ever know if Benjamin is truly on your side. You're seeing conflicting things by the demon putting stuff in front of you, making you think Benjamin is bad. Just like in Pan's Labyrinth, you meet Fawn, and Fawn tells you that he is your servant, that he is the servant to the princess, the service to the king, that he is there to ensure you your way back into the underworld. But he tells you have 3 perilous tasks to do, and these tasks are very, very weird. First, you have to kill a toad, then you have to get a knife, and you slowly start realizing that Fawn might be bad, though he keeps giving you the promises of a better existence, going into a better place. Just like Benjamin, you are not too sure if Fawn is to be trusted, and he's a little bit different. He's a little bit mysterious. And both characters in both worlds, you don't know too much about them, and that makes them dangerous. And now we're on to the last and third theme that I think that really brings these 2 movies together. And it's the protagonists, who they are inside. It's what really draws me to both of these movies, and why I think they're this, or both of these movies and game, which is why I think they're the same thing or pretty close. If you guys haven't seen me play Little Misfortune yet, it's not a secret that I cried really, really bad towards the end of Little Misfortune. And the reason is that towards the end of Little Misfortune, she sees her body in the street where she got hit by a car. And so she starts to mourn for herself. And then as Benjamin is about to take her into the better place, Little Misfortune stops and talks to her mother. And out of all the things that she could have said, she had cared about her mother. And she didn't care about the fact that she was no longer living. And despite this harsh, cruel world that she lived in, her heart was still full of compassion. And that compassion was a lot for her mother. And she wished that her mother would have a better life. And that even after she had passed, she wished that her mother could go into a better part of existence and be happy. She had this want and desire for happiness for others, despite this hard situation that she was dealing with, because she lived in a terrible world. It was way beyond her control of how certain things went down, yet her heart was still full of compassion. And just like in Pan's Labyrinth, the third test that happens inside Pan's Labyrinth, Fawn tells Ophelia to bring her little brother to the labyrinth, and he pulls out the knife that she had collected from the second task and says that in order for you to reclaim your place among the royal family, is that you need to sacrifice blood of the innocent, just a drop, but letting you know that you're going to take the life of your little brother so that you can rejoin this place of highness, to escape the terrible world that Ophelia was living in, because Ophelia, now at this point, her mom had died giving birth to her little brother, and the captain is on his way to kill Ophelia. She had lost everybody. She had nobody left, and then Fawn gives her this chance to take a better place among somewhere that has no pain and no lies. And amongst this choice, Ophelia says, no, I cannot take the life of an innocent, and I cannot do that. And Fawn disappears, and the captain comes, takes the child, and shoots Ophelia in the chest. And Ophelia drops down and dies in the labyrinth. But what you find out is that that was the final test. The test was not to take her brother's life. The test was to give up yourself for another. That Ophelia's heart was so full of compassion that she would not take another person's life, even if it promised a better world than the one she was living in, the terrible existence that she was born into. She would not do it if it involved hurting another. And she saved her brother, and in the process, she herself earned her way back into her family in the underworld and became the princess. And the thing about this one is, in Little Misfortune, you don't know if this underworld is bad or good, or if anything that Little Misfortune has seen is true. And it is the same within Pan's Labyrinth, is that this still might be a childlike image of what death is like for Ophelia. As she lays there dying, she's taken into the underworld and she is crowned princess, but then you are brought back to reality and you see her lying there covered in blood, and she just smiles and fades off into death. She dies. Both characters die at the end of their movies, or at the end of the movie and the end of the game. And you're left not knowing if what they had seen was real, or if anything they had experienced, if anybody else could experience the same thing. You don't know if what you had just witnessed after sitting there playing the game or sitting there watching the movie for so long, you don't know if what you saw was reality or if it was just the inner workings of a child's mind trying to deal with the cruelness of the world. You're left with a bunch of mystery, but you're left with two loving characters who, even in the midst of death, even in the fear that their life was taken, had compassion for others, which is really, really why I like this movie and this game so much. So if you guys have not seen Pan's Labyrinth and you don't really care about spoilers, you do have to watch Pan's Labyrinth pretty closely if you don't speak Spanish, and that's fine. The movie's great either way. I loved it, and I know this is a weird video, and I know I've been talking for a while. Probably quite a few of you aren't going to make it this far in the video just because it's hard to understand me because I don't speak very, very fluently. But if you did, please let me know if you liked this video. I really, really wanted to make this video. I really did. I really liked this movie and game quite a bit. I cried at the end of both of them. It was really, really moving for both of them. Fantastic. But for now, I think I'm going to leave this one here. So a lot of plans coming up. Get ready. I got a lot of really cool plans for the channel. I'm really excited. We're really close to 1,000 subs. So I can't wait. But for now, I'm going to leave you guys here. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.